All right, it looks like we're live. Om Lokaha Samastaha Sukhi no Bhavantu. May all means be happy and peaceful. Phoenix here. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to give it a few minutes here. See if anyone filters through here. I'm going to finish up this juice. I've been juicing a lot lately. It's been really healing for me. This one's got celery and carrot, turmeric, ginger, apple, cucumber, and lemon. It's good juice. Highly recommend. I use an Omega juicer. It's got an auger press, so it's not centrifugal. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, basically it just crushes it without heating it up. So it's a cold press. And then I sort of filter it through a filter to get out any of the remaining pulp. So it's sort of like pure nectar and really like floods the bloodstream with nutrients really quickly. So anyways, we're going to talk about crypto in a minute. Sometimes I get a little tired about talking about crypto, to be honest, but I'm here for you all, for those of you that are paying attention and watching. I get those comments and people say, you know, I look forward to your lives. I look forward to your videos. I watch every one. And that is like, for me, that's the motivating force right now. Because if it wasn't for that, I would have no purpose doing this. So for those of you that haven't already, you should consider joining MEXC if you want to join the C3, and you can DM me after you've done that, made a deposit. Maybe if you want to buy a Keystone wallet, the end of tomorrow is the day that the deal expires with the promo code DeFi Magic, where you get 35% off your order. But they also have another promotion going where if you buy 3, you get the 4th item free. And it's the cheapest of those items that you get for free, but it's still pretty good deal. So if you got like a tablet for free, that'd be a good deal, especially if you're buying them as Christmas gifts. Not a bad idea there. So now we're looking at the charts, and I'm going to try something a little bit different today. I'm going to start out just looking without any of the levels, and just so that we can, I find it is helpful. And again, using the object tree in the bottom right, it helps you, it allows you to do this. So I have a little folder called levels here. I don't know if you could see it, but you just select them, shift select or command select, whatever it is for you, and then add them to a group, and then you can hide them and bring them back whenever you'd like. So I do this because I'm finding that sometimes the chart can be a little bit confusing for those who are just seeing this for the first time. And so it also helps me to get a good macro picture if I start out and I just look on the weekly and then on the daily or the 3-day. But so in the case of the ES or S&P 500, it does appear that, doesn't it appear to want to be making the next leg down? It does. But then one thing to consider here, if we just take these weekly levels, is that this could very well be a range that is trying to form right now. And we're basically precisely in the middle of this range. So just to play the devil's advocate to the normal price activity that we've seen basically the entire year, it could be that we're putting in a range. And if that's the case, it could shoot up past this level here, 4,200, fake everyone out before coming back down again. And so that's just something to watch out for. And so I'm watching this chart very closely because, as we know, a lot of the times when I take trades, I'll wait to see what the S&P 500 does before I trade. Now, there's not always an exact correlation, but a lot of the times there is. So it looks like it wants to come down, right? But if we drop down and we see, okay, on a daily time frame, you could see a little bit of a range here. Now let's bring up the levels and you could see what I'm looking at. Okay, so here we have this range here between the 2022 open and the low. Mid-range was here where it came and sort of nicked off here and then came down and started to group together in this range here. If we drop down to the 4H, you can see it very clearly. And so we had the deviation back up to the mid-range of the larger range, dropped back into this 4H range, and now it's deviating below. So I was expecting that it would push up a little bit sooner than it did. It pushed up not once but twice, rejected. Is that a sign that there's going to be more downside? Well, potentially. It's not exactly a bullish sign, but I'm more in a place of neutrality at this moment. If we had dropped down, rejected, immediately dropped down, but we're not seeing a whole lot of pressure to the downside just yet. Okay, so that's just something to keep in the back of our minds. Okay, and then the Dixie has clearly been coming down for several weeks now, and it looks like it seems to be bouncing along the way. But if we take a look and we see, okay, let's look at some support levels here. On the weekly, it came below this support level and then came back above. Maybe it puts in a range here. Dollar has been weak, relatively speaking. And so that is support in favor of potentially more upside for cryptocurrency in the stock market, okay? And as long as this stays below this level here around 106, then it seems that the rally could still be very much on, okay? So just keeping that in the back of the mind here. Taking a look at Bitcoin now. And let's just start on the weekly. Again, it helps to get the macro view, okay? And I like to use the logarithmic charts when I'm looking on a bigger picture here. Sometimes I accidentally leave it on, but it doesn't make too much of a difference. And so here you can see sloping down on the EMAs, but notice what I was looking at earlier today. Okay, what have we seen so far? What has been the pattern so far? We had the big drop down from the EMAs and then came up and bumped off the 12, okay, came back below, and it seems to keeps coming back up to retest that 12 EMA. So if we see that pattern play out again here, then it's likely coming back up to this at least 18,300 level, which does correspond to a key level. We'll look at that in a minute here. But it could rip a lot higher than that and come all the way up to the 21 at around 20K, okay? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it seems like a higher probability at this point than more downside, because we saw an expansion of the downside here, and then we have this indecision, and this looks like some bullish pressure here that's forming from these wicks on the weekly, and it hasn't pushed up to the middle of this candle yet, which usually when we see a big drop down like that, it will come at least to the midpoint. Okay, so we haven't seen that yet. So now if we drop down to the daily, you can see that there's been some congestion here in this range. It's been in a rather tight range for the last week or so. And it makes sense because this is potentially an SR flip zone. Okay, this is previous resistance that could be flipping into support. Now, if we pull up our levels here, you can see here was the high of this range on a weekly basis. Okay, here, this is a quarterly level here. Okay, we're hovering in the top of this range here. Okay, so is it going to push up again? Now, it did break below this trend line, but I don't give too much weight to these diagonal trend lines. It's just something that I look at occasionally here. And we're coming down beneath this range. We saw a nice little fake out yesterday, got me on some longs, and was waiting for, actually I was in Ethereum at the time, but came up, tried to move up to the top of the range, rejected, and then pushed below, further below, broke below the range. Now, this could be seen as an underside retest and rejection. It's too soon to tell. If we see more downside, obviously, in the coming hours, then Bitcoin's likely headed a lot lower. But I don't think it's going to happen just yet. I don't think that's going to happen yet, because this is a support. This is obviously going to be a support zone right here. Okay. And this range, the breakdown, it was a strong breakdown, this 1 hourly candle here, but 1 hour is not enough to go off of. And it seems that it wants to consolidate and maybe push back up again. So what I'm looking at right now, what I'm looking for rather, is for this consolidation here, break back into this range here, and then that would be my long trigger. Okay, it shows some strength after breaking back in, because this deviation could ultimately be what leads to the next leg up. And I think eventually what will happen, that's actually a little exaggerated there, eventually what will happen is it will come up, continue higher, and then blast through here. Okay, that's the path that I think is most likely at this point, but it's dependent on ES starting to come back up into its range and start to push back up again. So it really depends. So that's the long scenario. I'm not going to be maybe a scalp long if it comes back down again and shows strength. But see, waiting for it to clear this level and then taking profits here doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. So I'd be waiting for it to come up above here and then show strength before entering long. Okay. So now on the short side of things, obviously a breakdown below here, which is around 16,700, comes down, starts to show weakness here, maybe comes back up and retest before falling down again. That would be a short position for me, obvious short trigger there. So, and then I'd be shorting it probably down to this zone here, right here. Okay, that would be my, at least the first take profit level. And then you could be also targeting this here, okay? But right now it's in no man's land. It's more in the bottom of this range here. So giving the benefit of the doubt to potentially more upside, because this is not a bearish setup just yet. Now, if we see another movement like we saw here, if we see a repeat of this, where it tries to push up and then it pushes down again, that would flip things pretty quickly into bearish territory. It's sort of on the edge right now, but I do think that this is going to turn out to lead to more upside ultimately. Okay, so that's just my leaning. Of course, you're free to trade as you please, not financial advice. If we look at Ethereum, let's just look at Ethereum here on a weekly level first. And you could see, again, the same sort of pattern with the same pattern. In this case, we broke very far away from the EMAs, only to come all the way back up to the 21, and then another drop down. I don't know why my screen is moving so much today. And then came back up again. So that's 3 times now. Will it push up again? If it does, that 21 EMA right now is sitting at around 1450, which actually would make some sense if we start to pull in the levels and see targets to the upside. I didn't really go through the bigger targets for Bitcoin, the ultimate targets for Bitcoin heading back up again. But as far as Ethereum is concerned, okay, this is an obvious range, right? But again, we're in the topmost quarter of this range, and it hasn't yet broken down. And this is an obvious uptrend, okay, a local uptrend here. So this level is obviously, again, it's an SR flip zone, okay? So this was previous resistance, resistance, resistance. Is it going to be support here? I think it has potential to do so. Going to depend on Bitcoin and the S&P 500 in large part, okay? But again, just because we have the break below this range here, and it was a strong break below, I'll give it that. But this is actually a morning star formation that we're seeing here, okay? You see the doji, the green candle following this strong red candle. And of course, it happens at a level of significance because this is a previous resistance level. Okay, so could it be that they ran the stops and now going to push it back up again? Or are we going to see another move like we saw here, where you see the bounce, the consolidation, the bounce, drop down, consolidation, maybe a slight bounce here, retest. Maybe we get a retest here and then drops down again, even lower. Okay, that's possible. And so what would be the sign of that? Well, obviously, if it starts to push up again, let's say it consolidates here a little bit longer, pushes up above this weekly level, I would say that would be a long entry for me personally. Okay, comes up here and then rejects. If it rejects, shorting it all the way back down at least to the bottom here, and potentially even lower than that. But if it doesn't reject and it gets back inside and we see it come up and it comes up in here, you have to excuse my drawings here. I'm still, no matter how many times I use this tool, I can't seem to get it the way I'm kind of a perfectionist and it looks hideous to me. So I'd rather just click many more times. So it starts to come up, starts to show strength here, breaks above, gets back inside, then most likely headed at least to the weekly open here around 1279. That would be maybe first take profit, second take profit 1302. But then from there, we're looking at this zone here. Okay, we're looking at around 1325 and then 1425. And 1425, if you remember correctly, corresponds to that EMA 21 on the weekly, okay, which it's done 3 times now in the last couple of weeks. It's come back up to, or in the last couple of months, I should say, it's come back up to test that multiple times. So this could just be, you could consider this as one deviation here of this range in here, okay? So it gets back inside this range, then usually what happens when we see a strong deviation like this and a push back inside, it's going to not only push up to the top, but it's going to push higher. And as we've seen, usually there's a period of consolidation, a drop below, another period of consolidation, and then if it continues to rise up, usually that third move up creates a box up here. So if we take this, and it's not always precise, but if we take this, okay, and we duplicate it, can I do that? Yeah, I'm going to clone this, and then I'm going to move it. No, I'm going to move it. Where is it? I'm going to move it. So you have your consolidation here in this zone. And then when it breaks back inside, what happens, you can usually, at minimum, it's going to come up to the mid of this, but likely even higher from there, okay? So they do follow these fractal patterns if you're paying close enough attention. I'm not sure if my chat is active right now. I was playing around with the settings on it. Is anybody watching? Can you just click or type something so that I know that it works? So Ethereum, that's Ethereum looking for longs, and if it continues to break down from here and we see continued weakness, then from there, okay, then what are we looking at? Okay, breaks below 1220, 1225, shows weakness, then most likely coming down to 1180, okay, which I believe this is a daily level. No, this is actually a 4H level, okay. 1180, and then from there, maybe 1160. I'm not going to be placing my targets for shorts that far down. I would say that. But again, no man's land for Ethereum and Bitcoin. I'm actually less secure trading Ethereum right now than Bitcoin. Bitcoin just seems like a cleaner chart to me. And also I got a little bit, I lost some money yesterday on a long that definitely got me on that long. They faked me out on this move here, which it fulfilled all of my requirements, all my conditions for the long. We see all the wicks, we see the rejections, and then it breaks above this level with strength, okay? Breaks above here, and above this swing high here, and it moves so quickly. Should have waited a little bit longer on this long. Where did it go? Yeah, so it broke through very quickly to the upside here, okay? So I started to get in around here and here. Didn't wait for the retest, okay? Probably should have waited for the retest. But usually when you see such a strong momentum moving back into a range, after all these rejections, that's usually a sure sign it's going to head back up, okay? And it did temporarily, but then the retest failed. So this is where I probably should have gotten out, but hard to tell. It was a tricky trade. Okay, faked me out that time. Happens to all of us. I've definitely given back some of my profits from last month. Last month I couldn't really believe that I had a 31% month last month, and this month I'm down like 6 or 7%. So it's kind of atypical. Usually I'm more consistent with my performance, but it is what it is. So a couple others that I wanted to look at were 𝐼𝐸. 𝐼𝐸. Do I want to look at 𝐼𝐸? What is 𝐼𝐸 doing? You know, if we just look at 𝐼𝐸 from a weekly perspective, it's pretty neutral, you could say, right? We're in this range here, not showing. It's actually right in the middle of the range, it appears. And so there's not like a bearish bias here or a bullish bias. But if we drop down and we take a look and we bring up the levels, let's look on the daily. This is the mid, okay? So we're just above the mid, and we had this sort of congestion here for a while. You know, I was perfectly happy trading 𝐼𝐸 until all of this happened, okay? And it just sort of made a mess of things. So, you know, because you don't know if and when that's going to happen again. And that's the problem with the token like 𝐼𝐸. So, but we finally had a breakdown from this range. Again, same movement as Ethereum. I was also long 𝐼𝐸 yesterday. Did the same thing, same exact thing. Came all the way down to the mid here. And this is also happens to be, no coincidence, it also happens to be an SR zone, okay? So the mid of these monthly levels here is how I'm defining it. So, but now it could be that this is a portal bottom here, or a tower bottom, okay? Which is just the two candles, one red, one green, and the two rejection wicks. Ideally, they're a little bit longer than that, but now you see it's trying to push back up again. So at the very least, I would think that 𝐼𝐸 would try to come back up and retest here. Maybe it fails. That's a short down to the mid again, and then down lower from there. Maybe the middle, let's see, maybe around 84 cents. But if it fails to do that, if we break below here, then it's definitely headed down to here and potentially lower than that. But I'm hesitant to trade the alts right now because I want to see what Ethereum and Bitcoin are going to do. And when Ethereum isn't clear, at least to me, then that's a signal for me not to trade any of the alts, okay? Because they tend to follow it. They tend to follow Ethereum, just like Bitcoin tends to follow the S&P 500. That's a correlation that we need to keep an eye on. But I am curious about several different alts. Among them, I'm keeping an eye on them, and I have the levels up. Among them are Yearn Finance, Wi-Fi. I don't know how you pronounce it, but this one has been very clean, and it's very clean range here, and breaking above this range, okay, to this daily level. Now showed some weakness, but then bounced off this, and now it's moving back up again. So if I'm not going to enter anything right now, but if Ethereum is strong, again, it starts to move back up, and then this comes up and shows strength here, well, then that's an obvious long. And you could have your take profits at 76.76 and 86.07. At least that's where I would actually probably I'd have three. I'd have one in the middle here, right around 81.63, and then I'd have one up at 85.87. And I'm leaning towards that direction until proven otherwise. There's a strong uptrend in play here. Very plain to see. But if it breaks down, then we'd be looking to target the mid of this as your initial target. Okay, so somehow my drawings got moved around here. So I'd be targeting around 6,100 if it breaks down. So if it breaks down from here, shows weakness, and we see maybe a bearish engulfing candle, or we see some more wicks like this that attempt to push up to the upside but fail, then obviously shorting it down to here makes sense. And then your monthly level is down at 54.20. But I don't think it's headed there yet. I think it still has room to push up higher and maybe land somewhere in this range here. Okay, so keeping an eye on Yearn Finance and also XRP. I've been sort of eyeing XRP. I don't trade it that often. Admittedly, I have more luck with Bitcoin, Ethereum than I do with XRP. Some of the alts like Matic I do pretty well with overall, but XRP can be a tricky one. But you can see here that we have a range here and we have these deviations here, and it sort of looks like it wants to break down, but no clarity on that yet. I think that, again, if it comes above here, well, this wouldn't exactly be a trigger for me. Maybe if it breaks above this mid range, this is a mid between two key monthly levels. So if it breaks here, shows some strength, definitely would long it up to this resistance, this support zone here, which is also a supply zone. Okay, as you can see here, this is a supply zone. It was the origin of this move down here. So, and the mid would be somewhere around 43.4378, and then from there probably have another one up somewhere in the middle here, right around 47.13. Okay, this is also a supply zone, and they tend to stack, as we know. Okay, so, and then from there final targets would be around 51 cents. That's if XRP can come up here. So what I'll do in this case, since I don't want to just be constantly going back and forth between charts, is I'll just place an alert here, and then I'm interested. If it doesn't get there, I'm not interested. And I'm not really interested in shorting this down because again, just looking at the weekly and the daily for Ethereum and Bitcoin, it looks like they might want to push up a little bit higher. Okay, and it might be actually one of those vicious rallies that pushes up a lot higher than people expected. Now, as for Bitcoin, I didn't cover exactly how far I think it could go, but I would not be surprised if this turns out to be a deviation. If this turns out to be a deviation and it does get back inside, I would not be surprised to see it blast up above this level here and then make its way up to 18,200 would be that first level of resistance. And this, again, this is a supply zone in here. That's sort of the bottom of the supply zone. Okay, so 18,400. Now, I think I mentioned this, but if we look on the weekly, I think I'm going to have to hide these again. Let me hide the levels. What happened to my levels? If we look on the weekly, where is that? That's 18,480 is just the 12 EMA on the weekly. Okay, so is it all that unreasonable to expect that it will come back up there? And again, that's the mid, close to the mid of this candle. If we consider the past performance of Bitcoin, 1 time, 2 times, 3 times in the last several months that it's come back up. And we're going to see this more and more as these EMAs start to sort of lessen their slope, right? So it's not unreasonable. And what's more, it could come up a lot higher to 1920K. Okay, so let's go back and see if there's any more evidence for that. Well, that looks like a gnarly smiley face there. If there's any more evidence of that on the 4H, and yes, there is, because this, as I mentioned, is one big inefficiency here, all the way up to 19,300. Okay, so that's bringing us closer to that 21 EMA. So in summary, I do believe that we're going to see more upside. I think that we need to see what's going to happen with the S&P 500 first. This needs to hold. If this doesn't hold, then all bets are off. If this doesn't hold, then definitely start looking for shorts. But again, I'm not just going to use this chart by itself to blindly trade Bitcoin, Ethereum. I'm going to watch and see if Bitcoin's following similar type movements. But we just saw a pretty big sell-off in the last couple of days. And I do think that a little bounce here, at minimum, a bounce back into this range and probably back up to the top at least one more time. I think that would give enough room for Bitcoin, Ethereum to push a lot higher. So that's basically it for today. I don't really want to cover any of the other alts. I haven't really been paying too much attention to BNB. Yeah, BNB is definitely in no man's land right now. I mean, if you shorted this, good on you. I didn't get a clear signal here to short this. You know, there's nothing clear about this environment right now for me. It's tempting to want to short it down to this level here, 273.3, and then ultimately 263. But that's not going to happen until Bitcoin really breaks down. So until then, I think that it could just be a sort of wavy gravy motion and start to come back and use these levels as resistance on the way back up again. And Solana's just been sort of similar. I had a trade on this like a few days ago. A couple times I tried to get it. I felt like it wanted to push up here. It was giving all the signs that it wanted to push up, but then immediate rejections. Solana continues to be weak and disappointing. Disappointed by Solana. Dogecoin is kind of messy too. You know, a lot of the alts are really messy right now. Dogecoin needs to hold here. If it does, though, then that's a sign that it wants to push back up and at the very minimum retest this level here at around 0.101. But I'm not really interested in Dogecoin right now because it's not in a place, not like at an extreme place. If it came all the way back up to this supply zone, anywhere in here, I'd be interested. Or if it's strongly rejected here, then I'd be interested in shorting it down again. Excuse me. Yeah, so my voice is giving out on me, and I'm gonna leave it at that. And if you got some value from this, please it helps to like the video and share your comments below. If you have any feedback for me on what you want me to cover, I don't know if I'm gonna always do the lives. I'm still sort of playing around with it. I'm finding that more people actually watch the pre-recorded videos, which is strange, but maybe it's the way that YouTube features them. So yeah, hanging in there, and you know, it's consistency is the key right now. And you know, I have those days, just like I'm sure all of you do, where I'm like, why am I even doing this? You know, I mean, it just, the sentiment is so bad, and that's why I'm listening to like positive vibration music to keep me going through it, but also just setting my alert, setting my level, setting my alerts, and not fixating on the charts. That's like really key right now. It's much more enjoyable to trade when the price is pushing up, because there's more active interest. Like when I make money shorting, I don't feel as satisfied as I do when I make money going long. And I think it's just because of the sentiment. None of us really want to see Bitcoin head down to 12K, but many of us, at least in my circle, are, you know, believe that that's going to happen. And also knowing full well that that's going to lead to sort of sentiment cratering even more than it has over the last year. And I think bear markets really wear you out over time. Like in the first 6 months, it's okay. In the first year, it's but then you start getting into like a year and a half, and it just, that between a year and a half, that's when things just, you're like, you're kind of on the edge, and you don't even want to talk about it. And, people don't even want to watch the videos. And so I'm here anyways. It's an experiment for me. Maybe in the next bear market, I'll just flip off and just be like, I'm out. I'll be back. I'm going to go travel and I'll be back. I'll be back when the pastures are green again, when the weather warms up, but this is an experiment. And so if you found value, then good on you. I'm glad that it was useful to you. Do I see a rally happening after the Fed meeting? When is the Fed meeting? I haven't even been paying attention to it. I try to check this FX Street like once a week and see on the 14th. Oh, that's why I see. I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. It's another week out. It's a week away. So it's possible. I don't think that, again, I don't think this rally is over yet. So that if you go back and watch the beginning of this stream, I think that we still have more upside. And I think this is just a momentary pause and sort of a nice little fake out move before the next push up. But it might just consolidate here for a couple of days, to be honest, or even until next week. Who knows? I don't have a magic crystal ball, but it might consolidate here for a while. As we've seen this play out before. Like, so for instance, with Bitcoin, just not looking at any of the levels here, you can see this block. If you just look in terms of blocks here, and then we had a block here, okay, consolidation of a big drop down here. It looked like it wanted to maybe head lower, but then it ended up it pushed back up with some strength, came back down, almost retested here, and this would have been a great long entry, okay, because what ended up happening was, again, if you take this and you clone it, which I'm not going to do because it's so complicated on TradingView, but let's just similar size here. It actually did not one, but two of these blocks after the fact. And so these are very powerful moves when you get, some people refer to this as the power of three, but I call it like three measured moves. So the 3 M's, it's like you have your consolidation. Everyone thinks it's going to top out, break down. Everyone goes short here, and then it just consolidates forever. And then it pushes back up again. Once it gets back inside the range, it's game on. And usually that's when it comes back up and breaks all the way through and puts in new local highs. So this is something to watch out for in this market. It seems these markets are so dynamic. They're always changing with their strategies. And this seems to be the most recent trend that I've noted, and many other traders have noted as well, is getting everyone to go short here and then squeezing them out and then pushing it up much higher. Okay. So I think that could happen again here. We could see that here, that this turns into the consolidation before the move back up. Okay. I really don't think that Bitcoin has held up remarkably well in the last couple of days, while the stock market has dropped down a significant amount. So it's held around that 17K level for the last several days, which leads me to believe that, again, I think that there's going to be another strong push up. And I think at minimum, we're targeting 18,400, 18,500, but could even push up to 19,300, just to really get people back engaged. And that's sort of there's a whole psychology to bear markets. It's like the vicious rallies are designed to get retail interested and to get them participating at certain key points before robbing them again, right? And so this is that point where it seems that could very well happen in the coming weeks. Okay. So that's all I've got for you today. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will maybe see you on Friday. I might, if I don't do a live, I'll just do something that's pre-recorded because there's not a whole lot of you that are present for this right now. So, but leave me some comments and let me know what you prefer, or what, I guess it doesn't really matter if you're not seeing it live. So anyways, have a beautiful rest of your day.